Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this month's book review. With me is Carly O'Donoghue, my partner in crime when it comes to reading books and sharing what we learnt from them. So, Carly, how are you doing today?
Hi, Tyson. Glad to be here. We are very knowledgeable people, aren't we? We've read a few books now.
This is book review number 7.
Is it great?
Yeah,
I've read so many books I've lost count. I was going to say 6, but number 7 it is.
we've probably read more books than some people read in a lifetime.
Yeah, we have been told to slow down on the book reading, but we won't. We won't
No,
slow
well,
down.
the good part about it, and what is today's book, is The One Thing.
And you'll hear us repeat the one thing several times in this podcast because that's really the main message of this book.
Well, the main message is based around a focusing question, and we'll talk about other stuff, but I just think it's important to, the one thing is actually written by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. So better give Jay a mention because he gets no recognition. And so the focusing question of this book is, and if you take nothing else away from it, this is what you got to say all the time: is what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary.
Yeah, that's right. What's your focus on the one thing to get your result and to make other things unnecessary in your day?
Yeah, and I reckon that the best example to give people is sometimes, I spoke about this with a coaching client the other day. I said sometimes you can write down a list of 50 things that you want to get done. And I've done this because I have my brain book where I write a lot of information down all the time. I can go back to some of my old ones from 15 years ago before I read the one thing. And you have this list of all these tasks you want to get done. And then you go back a couple of years later, you look at that list and you probably find 80% of them you never got done at all.
Yeah.
And they're not important anymore.
Yeah. I love how you started off with the list because I think the list is a super important part of this book, and it shows and it showcases actually it tells you why you need to do the one thing. So say going off your example, Tyson,
Yeah.
I'll say 25 things on the list because I'm a big post-it note, whiteboard person, list person. So you wake up in the day, go, oh, what do I need to do today? You've got 25 things on your list. Now, what you need to do is you need to chunk that 25, halve it. So chunk it down into say 10 things that you need to do. So the 25 is things that you could do for the day. What you need to do is look at those things that you need to do and shorten it to about 10 things. And they're the things that you should do. However, out of those 10 things, we're not even down to the one thing that you need to do for the day yet. So out of those 10 things, look at that again and halve it to 5 things. So those 5 things are basically your priority list for the day. You must do these 5 things today to make a difference in tomorrow. However, have a look at those 5 things again. So I'm shortening it again. And this is what it's all about, though. I'm shortening it. So out of those 5 things, what's the one thing out of those 5 things that will make a difference to your tomorrow? And this is what this book is about, the one thing that will make your life easier, or the one thing that will make you feel better at the end of the day. That's your one thing. So you've got 25, you broke it down to 10, you broke it down to 5. You have to do those 5 because it's priority. But out of those 5, there's only one thing that will make a really big difference in your day.
Yeah, and the part that's interesting about this, it's the last part of that statement is such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary. And this is where he talks a lot about the whole domino effect, where one domino, a small domino, can knock over another domino 50% bigger. And he has a diagram where it's got this one little domino, and I think it goes all the way down to knocking over the Empire State Building or something.
Actually,
diagrams are fantastic in this book.
Yeah.
But that was the thing, is just realize that when you knock over that one thing, whatever was you had to do next is probably going to be easier. And then when you knock over that one, whatever has to be next is probably going to be easier. And these can be bigger tasks as well. because some people will try and just, oh, I've got these three big tasks to do, and they try and do three at once, and they end up being ineffective in all three. Whereas if you attack the main one, sometimes you might find task number 5 then comes down to this last thing he says is actually unnecessary. You don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you've got so many things to do, break it down into little pieces. So sometimes when you complete a small piece, it will make the next bigger piece seem actually smaller because you've already done half of the work. And that's what we're talking about, the domino effect, that once you do something or complete something small, the one thing that you need to complete makes the next thing easier to complete. And it's a domino effect there. So at the end of a week or at the end of the month or at the end of the year, you've completed some really big tasks, but it seems simple because every day you're focusing on just one thing that you need to complete. That will make that big task at the end of the month so much easier.
Yeah, and some people, I think they get confused thinking, oh yes, but I've got multiple things I have to do. But he does break it down. What's the one thing in your personal life? What's the one thing in your business life? What's in your spiritual life, if you happen to be that way inclined? So he breaks it up into these different areas. So you can have more than one thing. They're just in different areas of your life.
Oh, absolutely. It can, if you wake up, if you go around, actually we were saying before the podcast, if the people listening today take away from this just the sentence, what's my one thing I need to do? If you keep saying that every day that you wake up, then our work is done. Our work is done with this book. But this is a book for everybody. So it's not just for business owners. It's give it to your partner, give it to your mum and your dad, because it does relate to every aspect of your life. And a lot of the times that we get overwhelmed or we get stressed in our life is because we're not prioritizing that list that we have. So again, let's bring it back to for those who are practitioners. You've got 10 patients booked in for the morning session. So you cram them in the morning session, you go, yeah, this is good. But suddenly you start to get a little bit worried, a little bit anxious because you've got so much on your plate. The question you need to ask yourself is, what is the one thing that will make you feel better at the end of the day?
Mm.
And I will tell you what that is.
Oh,
that
yeah,
one
please.
thing is like, the insight will blow your mind. The one thing, so if you've got so much going on, the first thing you need to do, and the one thing that will make you feel better at the end, is preparation. So if you get into work, if you know you've got these 10 people in a session, you get into work early. You look at your patient notes for all of those 10 people. You see what they're coming in for. You feel then you have control over the treatment that you're doing with all of those patients during the day, and it makes you feel calmer. If you see you've got a nail surgery review, do you actually have all the stuff that you need to treat with? Because the worst thing you can do is, when you're pressed for time, when you've got patient after patient after patient, is going in and out of your room. It's totally unnecessary. You're wasting a lot of time there, which will make you feel more anxious or more stressed or more overwhelmed. So if you've got something like a nail surgery review, have you got all the dressings there? Have you got all the instruments in your room? Have you prepped your room for all the scenarios that could actually happen with those patients? And then once that's done, you'll have that feeling of you're in control of what you're doing for the morning. So your stress levels will come down. The first patient will come in. It'll be really easy because you've done the preparation for it. So the one thing you need to do when you're feeling overwhelmed is take the time to prep.
That's a really good point. I've always said to people that I can never understand how people don't get their patient notes done. I never understand why people are sitting at the end of the day writing up patient notes. To me, that just seems really, really unprofessional to be doing that. Whereas
it's part of your job to do.
Yeah,
to
but
complete the patient
I would not
cycle,
walk out of the room. I would never walk out of the room unless my patient notes were done. That's how I'd come out. And I always ran on time. It's the preparedness part beforehand that allowed me the ability to do that, because you'd look at your patients for the day and you'd already be writing notes down. Oh, John's coming in with this. This is what we did last time. This is what I'm expecting the results will be. This is what I plan to do next. So part of my notes were already written. So as he came in and we went through it, that was being prepared helped me get the notes done faster.
Yep. Yeah. So what's your one thing that's going to make a difference to your life tomorrow? You don't want to go finish for the day and then go, oh, I didn't get my notes done. I didn't really treat that patient right because, I had 2 people waiting in the waiting area, because you weren't prepared, because you didn't do the one thing at the beginning of the day that will make you feel better during the day. So really focus on just the really simple things. And that's what we were talking about before with the domino effect right there. You do one little thing and it just makes a difference to the day. So your main goal at the end of the day, all the patients are happy, your revenues, on target, you've rebooked all these patients, but it didn't take much effort because you focused on that one thing, which is preparation.
So the other part about this book I really enjoyed was when he talks about six lies that, I don't know if you remember this part. But
as you probably no one listening, I just stared at Tyson blankly. Sorry, I raved on about these points in the book, but I don't know.
One thing I'll point out with this book though is when you get yourself a copy, I was given a copy of this in 2014 by a friend of mine, Rem Jackson, when I went over to a conference in America, and I think it's because the year before he was raving about this book, so this is how I ended up with it. When I read it the first time, I felt the first half of the book was excellent. Second half of the book was a repeat of the first half. I don't know why I thought that. And since then, I've always gone back and pulled out different parts of it for different talks I've been doing. Reading it again in preparation for this, all of a sudden I realized, actually, the second half of the book is just as good as the first half, and it is different. I just thought it was a repeat. I don't know why. But there's just not as many aha moments. In the first half of the book, it's just oh my God. Oh, you're sort of going, it's like every page there's something on there. The second half is just a bit more reading, I think, to get to the meat of it. So just be prepared when you read it. This is one of those books that you read, put down, come back to it, and definitely read it a second time. Don't read it just the once.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about that again before we came on, that I think with some of the books that we're reading now, and particularly this book, you can read it once and then 5 years later, you can read it again and it means totally different things to you because of where you are in your business career, in where you are in your personal life. You do take different things away. So again, I agree with Tyson. I read this years ago and I reread it and I'm thinking, wow, I've forgotten that.
Yeah.
And I've actually put the book on my bookshelf. So every time I walk into my office, I see the front cover of the book, which says the one thing. So I remember, hey, what is my one thing? What's my big purpose for today that will make my tomorrow a lot better or a lot easier? So it's about reread the stuff that the books that you might have read a couple of years ago, especially if you're just starting off in your career. If you're starting off in your first couple of years, make yourself read these books, because I know a lot of people, they go, book reading's not my thing and whatever. It does actually, it stimulates your mind and it does make you do you know what I was going to say? It makes your vocabulary a lot better. And I stumbled and I couldn't think of any words.
Yeah.
So it makes me a liar. I don't read at all.
Yeah, it made me feel smarter. What I found when I read a book like this and I really enjoy it, the thing I like about books over audio books, for example, is I can scribble notes down, I can write things down, I can put post-it notes, easy for me to refer back to. When I'm listening to an audio book, I could be listening to all this stuff and go, oh, that was fantastic. But I feel like I need to write it down somewhere. So what I tend to do now is if I buy a book and I read it and I love it, then I'll go and buy the audio book, because then I know I can just keep re-listening to that. And
that's a great idea.
The information. See, so I've done that with a few books now and I've just gone, it really reinforces. And then if you're in a hurry and you know that this book is awesome, well, well, I'll put the audiobook on while I'm driving around. And while they're talking, you go, oh, that's in chapter this. I remember that chapter. So when you get out of the car, you can go back to the book, go to that
That's a really
section,
good idea.
reread it. So I find it's one of those things you should have both, which is why I need my book. I need to turn it into an audiobook at some stage. The updated version. Ooh. Oh, so back to what I was saying about the 6 lies.
Actually, what were you saying? Yeah, sorry.
Okay, 6 lies. This is 6 lies that he points out to people. I won't go into detail, but the first one was...
Whereabouts is that in that book?
Well, I will have a look here. When he talks about it, he lists them, page 30, 6 lies between you and success. And then he goes into them in a bit more detail in the next 6 chapters. First lie was everything matters equally. And that's a lie.
It does not.
It does not. Not everything is equal. And he brings up, and this, where he's talking about your to-do list, your success list, and your should-do list and all that. And he talks about, the Pareto principle, the vital few, trivial many, all the other, was it Jurgen? And this is all, this section, this part's in my book as well. Funny enough. But when he's talking about the 80-20 rule, and this is when he talks about not everything matters.
I love the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, the 80-20 rule. But he said sometimes it could even be the 90-20 rule.
90-10.
Oh, no, he's talking 90-20.
Oh, because it's unequal. Right.
Yeah, it's not. And it's the first time, like I've read this before, but it's the first time I thought, well, maybe 90% of your returns come from just 20% of your efforts, not always 80-20 or 90-10. The second lie was multitasking. It doesn't save time, it wastes time.
I have heard this before, that it is a fallacy. Multitasking is a fallacy.
Yep.
Yeah, and that comes on time. So have you ever heard of, like, when, we all have the same amount of time. So we say we all have 100% of time. It's what we prioritize in that 100% of, what we get done at the end of the day. So when people go, I can do 5 things and I can do them really well, that's wrong. You can't, because you can't put 50% on one thing. You only have 50% more of your time. So where are you going to sleep, eat, whatever, in that space? So you have to really make sure that the effort that you're putting into one thing is your priority, that you need to master. So you can't, multitaskers can't master anything.
No. Oh, that's the quote. It says here, to do 2 things at once is to do neither.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's true.
You know what? That's a really good segue into...
I've got to get through my other 4 lies, though. Okay, go through. Now go through your Russian proverb. Then I'll come back to the other.
This links in well. When you get this book, you first open the page. This is where I knew this book was for me, and this my peeps were talking to me, because it starts off with a Russian proverb, or quotes. Okay, listen to this. If you chase 2 rabbits, you will catch neither one. Boom.
Or chickens.
Chickens.
You ever try to catch a chicken?
So basically, you need to focus. No, I have not. Actually, maybe I have. But if you focus on one thing, you'll get a result. If you focus on many things, you won't get any results. So exactly what you were talking about before, Tyson.
I did that at a workshop once. I had some tennis balls and I had somebody standing across from me, and I threw them one tennis ball and I said, catch it, and they caught it. They gave it back to me. I threw another one, they caught it. Threw another one, they caught it. I said, okay, now I'm going to throw 2. So I threw 2 tennis balls, and probably more than 80% of the time they only caught 1 out of 2, or they dropped both of them. Occasionally they would catch 2, but very rare. Then I grabbed 5 tennis balls and threw them all at the same time, and no one will ever catch one.
What a great analogy.
Rarely do they catch them. You get the odd person who's a bit of a smart ass who'll go, okay, I'm just going to focus on one, and they'll catch it. But if they try and catch multiple balls, they usually always drop them. So, and that's why, when kids are studying, like my daughter, for example, I say to her, turn your music off, turn off the messages on your phone, just study. Oh, but I study better when there's music. No, you don't. It's proven you don't. they reckon very few people will improve with music.
Right.
And even when it comes to multitasking, there's this group, I don't know if they call them supertaskers or just some weird name, but it's sort of like less than 2% of the population can actually truly multitask.
Wow. There you
The
go.
rest just think they can. Okay, lie number
Right.
3
Number 3.
says, oh, this is interesting. A disciplined life. You need to have a disciplined life to be successful. They reckon that's a lie.
Yeah, I reckon it's a lie.
Yeah. What's to say here? Don't need more discipline. You just need to be able to direct and manage your time better.
Yes, which is exactly what we were talking about in the multitasking, wasn't it?
Well, it's talking about powerful habits. It's not about being disciplined to do it. It's just creating the habits where you're not even trying to be disciplined. It just happens. So you got to manage it. You got to be able to direct your time, manage your time, and get in the habit of doing that. It's got nothing to do with, oh, I'm going to do this at a certain time, and trying to discipline yourself to do that. And if you don't do it, you're going to smack yourself over. You've seen those movies where you see those guys with the whips whipping themselves on the back. Now, you don't want to be doing that.
You don't want to be doing that. The habits thing's interesting because when we talk about the Atomic Habits book, it touches on, well, the whole book's on, creating habits for yourself, daily habits.
So, and lie number 4 is willpower is always on will call.
Explain further.
Explain further. Please explain. It says willpower is in short supply, the same as like delayed gratification. So what he's talking about is if you try and have willpower all the time, you've only got a certain amount of mental energy. And so your willpower has a certain battery life to it. If you're constantly having to use your willpower, you will chew up your energy so much faster until you will give in.
Yeah, it'd be exhausting.
Yeah, it's just exhausting to try and do it all the time. So it says, limited battery life, and eventually you end up empty. See, you don't want to. It's not about. Yeah, everyone will have a certain amount of willpower and delayed gratification, but if that's how you're trying to be successful by using willpower, you're going to burn yourself out.
Yeah, it's creating those habits everyday habits, saying the one thing.
There we go. Lie number 5. To be successful, you need a balanced life. Ooh, big long pause.
Ooh. Well, do you know what? That when you said balanced life, everyone talks about, how do you balance, your personal and business life, yada, yada, yada. And a quote by Michelle Obama, and I hope I get this right, says that, and it actually talks about women because she is in that space, is in that advocate space. She says that women can have everything, but not all at once.
That's true.
Which means that, you can have, if you want a family, if you want a career, if you want, to go marathon running or whatever, and be a really big health person, you can do all of that, but you can't do it all well 100% of the time. Again, what we're talking about, we all have the same amount of time. So if you've got 100% space bar, you can't put 100% in effort into, 3 or 4 aspects of your life because it just doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't mean you can't do that. You just can't do it all at once.
No, and that's where people, they try and live this, I want a balanced life between my work life and my family life. And they know when it's not balanced properly because when they're with their family, they're thinking about work. And when they're at work, they're thinking about their family.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you've got to be able to, what's the one thing that's important right now? So if you're with your family, focus on your family and do not think about work. Work will be there tomorrow. But also when you're at work, your family needs to understand, I'm working. No, I can't just stop work and go and do this task that may not be important and can wait for the next day. So it's important to be able to switch between them, but don't go off in too far extremes either. Don't work yourself to death and neglect your family, and then don't spend so much time with your family that you can neglect work. It's that, and he's got a good diagram where he's got work life, and it's just nice, smooth movement between the two. And he has another diagram where it's just too much on either side. Which this looks so much better on the video, the way I'm waving my hand about.
Tyson's waving his hand in the air.
Yeah.
People who can't see because we're on a podcast.
Yeah, then that causes problems. So moving on to line number 6.
That number 5, that I think people get mistaken about the word balance. They think it needs to be 50-50. Balance doesn't mean 50-50. It means that you might do, 40% one, and then you do 20% for something else that, doesn't take a lot of effort, or that doesn't take a lot of time. And then you've got the rest for other things, but it all has to balance into that 100%. Sometimes you will need to spend more time at work or more effort at work than you do in your personal life. And then some weeks your personal life will take priority rather than work. So you don't have to think that every week needs to be the same or every month needs to be the same, because that's not reality. That doesn't happen. If something's happening in your family, you need to spend more time on them than work. But sometimes if work's really busy, you need to spend more time at work than you do with your family. But a balance means that over, 2 to 3 months, it pretty much equals out.
Yeah, and it's no different to people who are very spiritual or part of their church, or people who do a lot of charity work. And I've seen people who give so much time to charity and to their church that they neglect their family and they neglect their work. So sometimes you can be thinking you're doing the right thing because, I'm giving up my time for the church, I'm giving up my time to do this charity work, but also it's an extreme. Yeah. And you're losing focus on some of the other things. So it's having that balanced life in so many different areas.
Yeah. And exercise as well. If you're training for a marathon, or if you're training for an event, that you can't work as much or you can't see your family as much. And so you just need to understand that that is a reality and not expect yourself to be 100% of yourself for all people and aspects of your life. So if you are exercising more, just going, okay, well, get up earlier or come home later to do it. But something has to give.
Yeah. When I wrote my book, I had to get up at 4:30 every morning. And I wrote from 4:30 to 7:30 because that was the only time I knew I'd be able to get that big task done. So then I could see my family, then go to work and get on with the rest of the day. So that was where, what was one thing that by doing it now made everything else easier or unnecessary was do that writing first thing in the morning. That was the key. So lie number 6 is big is bad. Let me explain. And I've got a thing I wrote down here myself that wasn't in his book. And I put, like the big green giant. But it's sort of when things are too big, that people think sometimes it's bad. And there's a quote here. He says, "We are kept from our goal, not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal." So sometimes there's this massive goal. Instead of breaking it down, they just see this big thing that they've got to do, and it's too hard. It's too difficult. And therefore, big is bad. That's why I wrote down big green giant. Because the big green giant was always bad. And I wrote something in the margins here. And this is where it applies to podiatry. It's the same thinking where people have a fear of having a big clinic. They're worried about, but if I have this big clinic, I'll have all these headaches, all these people I've got to look after. You can't go from a small clinic to a big clinic overnight. It's something you must do step by step. You gradually build up to having a big clinic. But once you have a big clinic or a big business is not bad. You've got a big business, Carly.
Yeah, I do, but it operates the same as a small business. It's the same headaches. It's the same problems. Where you run into problem is that if you've graduated the first couple of years and you either buy a big business or you open a business and then you want to open 20 more in the next 2 years, that's sort of saying to me that you don't understand the concepts of business itself. Yes, have those goals, but the reality of the situation is that you need to accomplish that one thing. It's like that domino effect. Once you accomplish the one thing and you knock over that task and it goes into the next task. the bigger goal of yours is opening a big clinic is easy, but you need to work those rungs of the ladder first. So if you've got a ladder, at the top of it is your goal, and if your goal is a big business, or if your goal is actually having staff members work, because that's a totally different kettle of fish as well, working for yourself and then having staff members as well, different conversation, Tyson, than the one that we're having at the moment. However, if you've got a ladder and there's rungs on the ladder to actually climb to get to your goal, if you choose to skip some of those, then your goal isn't probably as going to be as successful as what you want. You have to complete each rung to actually make that's the clear pathway, that each run teaches you something along the way, that once you then try and climb up to the next run, if you've completed all the ones beforehand, you've got a more knowledge base and more confidence and skill levels to complete the next task. So if you think of each run as a task, then you're more capable of doing it. But you have to start at the bottom to climb up.
Yeah, and he's got his own quote, his own word that he's made up.
Oh, did I just go left field on that? I think I might have.
No,
about that. You can edit that out if you need to.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But he's got this word here, megaphobia, the irrational fear of big. So people just think big is bad. They're concerned about something being, if it's big, it's something to be actually worried about. So therefore, they'll shoot for a lesser goal, and so instead of shooting for the stars, they'll shoot for something less, because they go, well, it's not as scary to actually do that. So that was the six. They were the 6 lies. I'm just looking at the time. So is there anything? Are there any other main points from the book that you want to talk about before we finish up? Because I don't know, there's so many things in here that, once again, we could talk for ages on it.
Yeah, I think this book is a good one to have on your shelf. So if you don't have it, or if you're thinking, maybe I don't need to get it because I understand the one thing, blah blah blah, I'll think about it.
And I've already listened to Tyson McCarley, and they've explained the whole thing.
I know we haven't explained it in depth of what Gary and Jay does in the book. So definitely have this on your bookshelf. We've all seen the iceberg picture, how you work the bottom of the ocean where the iceberg is really large, and that's where all the productivity happens, and you only see what's on top of the water. We've all seen that diagram. He does go into this diagram a little bit more about the bottom is your productivity, or the purpose and priorities are on the bottom. And the more you prioritize your tasks and the more you set your purpose, and the bigger that is, the more productive you will end up being, and the productivity is what you see on top of the ocean. So he's just changed the words around a little bit there. So if you focus on your purpose of your goal, or your purpose of your business, and prioritizing your task every day, you will find that you will notice that your productivity is better.
True. I'm going to finish on one thing. That sounded funny. I'm going to finish on one thing. There's one last thing.
Clever.
I thought it was too. But this is, and I actually put a note because this was actually a personal thing that happened to me when I read this part, which is why I highlighted it. And I highlighted this back in 2014. It says here, pick a direction, start marching down that path, and see how you like it. Time brings clarity, and if you find you don't like it, you can always change your mind. It's your life. So back in the early days when I decided to try and take my podiatry clinic down the franchise path, and I'd spent about $50,000 with a franchise company. I'd written all these manuals, done all this stuff, and then went down the path, and we had a couple of Pro Arch podiatry clinics that were originally franchised. And as I was going down that path, and I was enjoying it and loving the excitement and where this could potentially go, world domination, all the things that when you're younger you want, until one day I'm sitting in a motel room and my daughter rang up. And when I spoke to my daughter, she said, "Daddy, why are you away all the time?" And my heart just sunk. And that's when I realized that this line in this book meant so much to me, was because it reminded me of, yeah, I was going down a certain path. I thought that was the path I wanted, but it's okay to change your mind. If all of a sudden you go, no, I don't want to go down that path anymore. And I didn't. I decided to just end the agreements with everyone. They just kept their clinics. Everything was fine. And so it's not a bad thing that if you're focusing on one thing and you're moving down that path, and all of a sudden you realize, damn it, I've gone down the wrong path. It's okay to change your mind. Don't feel that you've got to stick with it until the end, because sometimes people will just keep doing something and they don't enjoy it anymore. And
Yeah,
it's
you need
okay.
to.
It's okay to say, I want to do something different.
Yeah. And you have to ask yourself, why are you doing this? Who are you trying to prove something to?
Mm,
So if you're trying to prove something to your mates or trying to prove something to your family, have another think about that, because all you have to do is prove something to your nearest and dearest and to yourself, and be true to yourself. So I don't think there's one successful person that hasn't changed their pathway along the line.
yeah, I think
And
so.
you're always in control. So people think that, oh, I don't have a choice. You always have a choice.
It's true. Okay, Carly, so what are we going to give this book? A big
Big
thumbs up?
for this one. This one. Mm-hmm.
Big thumbs up, yes.
Yep.
So definitely, this is another one of those books that you need to have in your bookshelf. And it's not that just coincidentally we read these books and it's just a fluke that we just happen to pick 7 books in a row, which were awesome. We sort of know about the books beforehand before we actually read them. Either I've read it beforehand or you've read it beforehand, and then we recommend it to the other person. So we're not just randomly picking a book off a shelf, reading it, and then going, yeah, this is crap. Let's go and find another one.
Well, it's the whole point of having this book review, that you guys don't have to randomly pick a book off the shelf. You can actually go, well, what's this book about? Is it worth buying? Yes or no?
Yep.
This one's a yes.
This one is definitely yes. Okay, Carly. So until next month. Until next time, I will I'll talk to you again soon. So thanks for doing this book review with me again.
No worries. Take care.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.